guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today I am going to be doing another recent reads, and as per usual I have a random mix of genres that I'm going to be talking about today. And for the most part they're fine. I enjoyed them. I have nothing that I rated above a 4 stars. I think one of the books that I rated a 4 stars. I do have one DNF that I'm really sad that I had to DNF, but we'll talk about that first. And then I have nothing that I rated below a 3 stars. So like I said, everything that I have, I enjoyed it. They were fine. So we will go ahead and get started. So starting with the book that I had to DNF, unfortunately, that is going to be Babel by R.F. Kuang. And this is a adult fantasy dark academia novel, and this follows our main character by the name of Robin Swift. And at the beginning of the story, he is an orphan. He's a young boy at that, and he is taken in by this professor that goes by the name of Professor Lovell. And as like a stipulation of him being taken in, he is told that he has to be taught these different languages so that he can try and get into Oxford University. So Robin is taught these different languages, and he of course gets accepted into Oxford University, and he is studying translation at the Tower of Babel. And he is studying translation with the hopes that he can eventually learn silverworking, which is part of the magic system in this book. And silverworking, from the part that I got to, is fueled by language. So in studying translation, he is learning different languages and how languages work so that he can be proficient in silverworking. So like I said, I DNF'd this. I got a little over 40% of the way into this story, and my main complaint with this is I was just bored. Not a lot happened in the 40% that I read. I just felt like it wasn't really heavy on the plot. It was this book literally, and this is what everybody has been saying because everybody and their mother is reading this, but it's true. This book is literally all about language and translation and the use of words. Now, that's really interesting, and it's really interesting the first time they talk about it, maybe the second time that they talk about it, but in the little over 200 pages that I read, when they continuously talk about it, to me it's a bit overkill. I was kind of bored with the continuous conversation. I do think it is interesting, that conversation of translation and language and how it can change over time, how it does change over time, and how the meaning of words change from culture to culture. I do think that all of that is very interesting, but I just didn't need the repetitive conversation over and over again, because once Robin is accepted into Oxford, we follow him and his classmates as they are going through their classes, and this topic is brought up time and time again, and that is a huge part of the story. So I feel like if you are not well aware of that going in, this might not be the story for you. And I did know that translation and language and that was going to be a part of this story. I just did not know how big of a part it was actually going to be. And that was like to me, that was a huge downfall of this story. I also did not realize that like the magic system with like the silverworking was such a small part of this story. They do talk about it when it is mentioned. It is very interesting, and I just wish that we got more of it. Now, with that being said, it very well could be mentioned a lot more in the later half of the story. I'm not sure. I just could not stick with the story long enough to get there. But in the 40% of the story that I read, it was not a big part of it. When it was brought up, it was mentioned, but it wasn't like explained. I think in like the last part of the 40% that I read, they started to like bring it up a little bit more, but to me, it wasn't brought up as much as I thought it was going to be, with this being like a fantasy story. So that was kind of a disappointment for me. I also just felt like there wasn't enough plot. Like, nothing was happening. It was literally us just following Robin, his roommate, his other cohorts that was part of like the first years in Oxford, going to their classes and just following them around. There is a bit of a plot happening, and like when we see that coming up, like that's what I was interested in. That's what I wanted to see more of, but we just didn't get enough. I did like Robin as a character. We got an introduction of another character by the name of Griffin, I think. I'm pretty sure that's his name. I think it's Griffin. I did like him, and anytime we got like Robin and Griffin, like that's what I was excited for, but sometimes it would be such a long time in between getting that story that I would just honestly be bored to death. And I was continuously giving like my updates on Instagram of how I was like feeling reading the story, and people were, you know, trying to tell me like, you know, well, once you get to this part, the story kind of picks up, and like I would get to certain parts and it might pick up for like a few pages and then it would slow down tremendously again, and I just I couldn't do it. I know someone else had recommended picking up the audiobook, but it was like such a long wait for the audio at my library. Someone else had told me to maybe DNF it and come back to it. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way that I could like DNF this and then have to most likely reread it to remember. No, I can't put myself through that again. So no, I can't. Also with this, there are a lot of footnotes. I knew that there were going to be footnotes. I'm not a footnote person. I don't like stories that have footnotes. I don't understand the purpose of it. I don't understand why you can't work your footnotes into the story. I don't get it. But with this, the footnotes to me added absolutely nothing. To me, you could have read this entire book without the footnotes and would have just been fine. It just interrupted the flow of the story because you told me absolutely nothing. I interrupted that whole paragraph for nothing. And I tried to like skip them. I tried to like act like they weren't there, but my eyeballs would not let me do it. My brain could not compute that I could just skip it. I just had to read them because I knew that they were there. It just was kind of annoying at a certain point, especially just the fact that they did not add anything to the story. I guess it just hurts me to say that I did not enjoy this because you could tell that R.F. Kuang put so much work into this, and the writing is beautiful. But if I've never said this on my channel before, I am not somebody that needs like the beautiful, pretty, purple prose like writing. That's nothing that draws me to a story. I am a straight to the point person. I'm like that in real life. I'm like that with my books. I'm like that. I'm just the type of person where I'm just like, what are you trying to say? And I feel like sometimes when writers are doing all of that flowery writing, it's like you're beating around the bush to what you're trying to say. And sometimes I kind of felt like that in here. You're using so many words to just say what you have to say. Like, what are you trying to say? So anytime somebody is describing a book where they're like, the writing is beautiful, nope. I'm already not listening anymore because that's not the book for me. You're not going to sell me on something where someone's like, the writing is beautiful, it's lyrical. Nope. I'm okay with like if someone says it's good writing, great. But when it's like that pretty purple, no, I don't like it. And this sometimes in certain areas, I feel like that. You said so much to say nothing. No. Parts of this I thought were great. The very beginning of this is very intriguing. It's very captivating. It will hook you. It will. But after that, it slows down a lot. I have heard like the end of this or like the last, I don't know, like something percent gets really good, but I just don't have the time to wait. This is a chunky book. and I just don't have time to get there. So unfortunately, I had to DNF this. I will say, if you are going to pick this up, that's fine, but just go into it with the right expectations, because that was my problem. I did not have the right expectations going into this. If you think that you are going to get like a really plot-driven, magic system-filled book, this is not what this is. If you just want beautiful writing, good writing, something that will tell you all about language and translation, and this definitely gives you like the school academic vibes, but where you are actually in the classroom setting, this will be for you. Unfortunately, this was not for me. So then next up we have is Beast of Prey by Anya Gray. And this is a young adult fantasy. And this one follows two main characters. So first we have Kofi, who is an indentured servant working as a beastkeeper at a night zoo. And she is working there trying to pay off a debt that her father actually incurred right before he died. And so then we are following another main character by the name of Ekon, who is trying to become a warrior for Sons of the Six. And they are in their world. There has been this monster that has been attacking people and killing people over the years that is known as the Shaitani. And one night at the night zoo, a fire breaks out and the indentured servants are trying to escape because none of them want to work there. And the warriors, they have been tasked to go there to keep the servants from escaping. And Kofi actually ends up saving Ekon from the Shaitani. And so eventually they end up teaming up to hunt the Shaitani in the jungle so that they can kill it for their own specific reasons and kind of become the heroes. Him with his warriors, and then her back at the night zoo. So we are basically just following these two as they go out into the jungle to try to hunt down this monster. I ended up rating this one a 3 stars. I thought it was a really fun story. I really enjoyed, I think my favorite thing was learning about the different like mythical animals. 1 at the night zoo and 2 once they get to the jungle. I also liked the representation of one of the characters, because out of the 2 main characters, one of them actually struggles with anxiety and OCD, and that was really interesting to see. I did listen to this on audiobook, so how it's like narrated and like listening to them actually deal with their anxiety and OCD is interesting. I don't want to say like it's interesting to like listen to, but I don't know another way to say that. So it's like interesting to listen to. But I like that she included that representation. My only like complaints about this is that the main plot of this is that they are trying to hunt this monster, the Shaitani, in the jungle. But it takes so long for them to get to this dang on jungle. It's about half of the story before they actually get to the jungle. And so, I mean, it makes sense on the actions it takes for them to get to the jungle. It just feels like it took them a long time to get there. So that was like my main complaint. And then I just felt like when they got there, they didn't stay there long. So the pacing just felt a little off with this one. I did like, though, that there were a lot of things that were revealed in this world, and there were some things that actually came together because we got some perspective. We got both of Kofi and Ekon's perspective, and there was also another perspective that was thrown into this story, which I'm not going to say whose perspective that was, but once everything came together and there were some things that were revealed, I was surprised because there were some things that happened that I was not expecting. So I did enjoy this. This was one of those books that I've actually had on my shelf for just a little while. I was not planning on picking this one up. I just saw that it was available on audio in my library and decided to go ahead and check it out. And I was pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed this one. I do know that the second book, I'm not sure if this is just a duology or a series, but with the way that this one ended, I am really looking forward to continuing on with the next book. So then I read Hocus Pocus and the all-new sequel, and I picked this one up because I participated in the read-along that Bonnie, Jamie, and Alicia hosted with reading this and then watching the first Hocus Pocus movie and then the new Hocus Pocus movie. Now, at the time that I'm filming this, I have not watched the new Hocus Pocus movie yet. So what's that? Hocus Pocus 2? I have heard that it's really good, but I just have not watched it yet. But by the time this has been posted, though, I should have already watched it, but I have not watched it yet. So I did pick this up, and the first part of this book is literally the Hocus Pocus film is literally that film in book form. So if you haven't like seen the movie or heard about Hocus Pocus at all, so this follows Max and his younger sister Danny, who have just moved to Salem, and Max's classmate Allison, who end up going to like the Sanderson sisters, who are witches. They end up going back to their house and lighting a candle and bringing the Sanderson sisters back to life. And on Halloween night, the Sanderson sisters are running amok in their town, and they are basically trying to figure out a way to send the Sanderson sisters back to where they came from so they don't hurt any of the children in their town. That's basically what this is about. If you have not seen the movie Hocus Pocus, I suggest that you do. It is like a Halloween classic. It is an amazing movie. Like I said, the first part of this reads exactly like the movie. I think there are like some subtle differences, but it reads exactly like the movie. I listened to this on audio, and as I was listening to it, all I could do was like envision the entire movie in my head. I've seen it so many times at this point. I could envision the entire movie in my head. It was amazing. So if you have not watched the movie, I suggest that you do. Now, the sequel to this, which is part 2 of this book, like I said, I have not watched Hocus Pocus 2 yet. So I'm not sure if this follows the movie, but the sequel is, I think, like 25 years later, and it follows the daughter of Max and Allison. Her name is Poppy, and she and her friends actually summon the Sanderson sisters back again. And so now Poppy and her friends are trying to get rid of the Sanderson sisters yet again. So now it is Poppy and her friends doing the same things that Max and Allison and Danny did 25 years ago. So I enjoyed the second part of this story. I ended up giving this book overall a 3 stars. I thought it was fine. It was fun. It was very nostalgic, but I just didn't think it was anything that like blew me out of the water. Like I said, it just, as far as like the first one, it just read just like the movie. It was really fun. It was nice to listen to, but you know, it wasn't anything that was like mind-blowing, but it was a fun time. If you have not picked this up, I would suggest that you do. It'll just bring back all of those memories and will definitely put you in the Halloween spirit. Then next up I have, which was also one of my most anticipated reads. I don't think I mentioned that for Babel. Babel was one of my most anticipated reads. This is also one of my most anticipated reads for this year, and this is The It Girl by Ruth Ware, and this is an adult mystery novel. So this one follows our main character by the name of Hannah, and in this, at the very beginning of this story, she finds out that this guy that has been in jail by the name of, I think his name is Jonathan Neville, but everybody calls him Neville. Yeah, Neville. And she finds out that he has died of a heart attack in prison. And he was put in prison because her testimony put him there for the murder of her best friend, April, because back when they were at Oxford, Pelham at Oxford, they went to Pelham, which is a college at Oxford, and she had found her best friend, April, strangled to death in their dorm room, and she had seen Neville coming down the stairs from her apartment, and her testimony is what landed him in prison. And at the beginning of the story, she finds out that he has died in prison. Well, she gets contacted by this reporter who insinuates that Neville might not have committed this murder. And so that sets the story off where Hannah is trying to figure out whether or not he was the one to actually murder April. So the story is told in a past and a present. So in the past, we are following Hannah along with Hannah's husband and a group of their friends, including April, back when they were in college, and leading up to the murder of April. And then then we go back to the present where we are following Hannah as she is talking with her college friends and trying to figure out exactly what happened that night, because for whatever reason, some of her memories have been suppressed and she wasn't exactly sure what happened the night of April's murder. And we are following her as she is trying to figure that out. I ended up rating this one a 3 stars. I did enjoy this for the most part. I liked the drama between her and her friends. I liked the past timeline with us getting a lot of background with April, who was considered the it girl, and us leading up to the incident with the murder, and why Hannah ended up pinning this murder on Neville, because once you figure out why she did that, it kind of makes sense. And I also just liked the slow burn of this. For whatever reason, I was just very intrigued to learn exactly what happened, and I thought that I had this figured out from the very beginning on who actually did this, since you can kind of figure out that it wasn't who they thought it was. And I thought I had it figured out, but I really liked the fact that Ruth Ware was able to make us think at one point in this story that all of the friends had something to do with it, at least at one point. At one point, she had you thinking that all of these friends might have had something to do with April's death. So I can appreciate that part of this story. Now, where this story kind of lost me at was, I do think it was dragged on for a bit too long at points. This book is a little over 400 pages, and I don't think it needed to be that long. I feel like some things were explained too much that didn't need to be explained that much. So Hannah is pregnant in the present timeline, and for whatever reason, her pregnancy is a really big part of this story, and it didn't need to be. I don't understand why we got so much of her pregnancy. I don't understand. I don't know if I missed something, but her pregnancy was such a big talking point in this, and that could have cut out a lot of this, a big chunk of this. And then we had an introduction of another character towards like the end of the story that I don't think that we needed, because the introduction of that character served no extra purpose in this. I think it was just like a wow factor, I guess. So I think that just added page length, if you ask me. But I will say, like, the twists in this really got me, because from what I thought was happening to what actually happened, I was not expecting that. It's not anything that will stay on my mind forever, but I did enjoy it. I have seen a lot of people compare this to In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which I have but have not read. So now I'm really intrigued to read that, and a lot of people said that they liked that one better than this one. So I mean, I enjoyed this one well enough, so I'm curious to see what I'm gonna think of that one, so we'll see. Now this is my third Ruth Ware book. The first one that I read from her was Turn of the Key. I didn't like that book. A lot of people seem to like it. I didn't care for that one. I feel like I read better versions of what that book was supposed to be. I didn't like it. I read One by One by her, and I did like that one. I think I gave that one a 3 stars. Again, I thought it was fine. And this one, I enjoyed it while I was reading it. So I will continue to probably pick up newer stuff by her. So it was good. So then next up we have Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney, and this is an adult mystery. And so this one follows Daisy Darker and her family, who have decided to get together for her grandmother's, I believe, 80th birthday like dinner. And so her grandmother lives on like this secluded like island, and once they get on the island, they can't leave because like once it's high tide, I guess it's dangerous for you to try to like leave. So once you're there for like 8 hours before it's safe for you to leave again. And so I believe it's Daisy, her 2 sisters, one of her sister's daughter, their mother and father, and then a family friend. So they're all here for her Nana's 80th birthday dinner. At a certain point in the dinner, they hear a scream. They've discovered that their Nana is dead. And then every hour or so after that, another family member is being killed. So essentially, they are being picked off one by one, and they are trying to figure out what is going on. So that is what this is about. This also has like a lot of flashbacks in it, but I ended up rating this one a 4 stars. So this is my 4-star read, and I enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed the flashback scenes and the drama and the craziness with their family, because of course nothing is what it seems, you know, the outside looking in when it comes to these families. Because listen, this is a hot mess of a family. So I really enjoyed that. I really, really enjoyed the twist at the end, because I did not see that coming. This is one of those books where you almost like want to read it again to see how the heck you missed that, because I did not see that coming. And if you have read that and seen it coming, like, what tipped you off? Because I did not see that coming. So I really enjoyed that. I loved like the vibes of this one, with it being around Halloween #1, and then just them being like secluded. It's like dark, they can't go anywhere, you're stuck in this big house, people are getting picked off one by one. I like the picked off one by one when it's done well. And this is one of the ones that's done well, because I've already read one of the picked off one by ones this year and it didn't work out well for me. This is one of the ones that I feel like it's done well. So I enjoyed it. So this is my second book by Alice Feeney. The first one that I read was Rock, Paper, Scissors. And with Rock, Paper, Scissors, I felt like it took me a while to get into that one, to the point to where I almost DNF'd it until it started picking up. But this one, I was sucked in right away. So I ended up getting another Alice Feeney book, His and Hers. Needless to say, I'm really starting to enjoy Alice Feeney. So yeah, this one was a nice surprise. This is one of the random ones that I got from Book of the Month that I just wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it. Once I got it, I started hearing good things about it. Still didn't know if I was going to like it, but I was pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed this one. So that is all that I have for you guys, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.